Jordan here at the Newcastle United training ground where Eddie Howe, look at that, stunning, where Eddie Howe's just done his pre-match press conference ahead of Sheffield United on Sunday. Been a busy week for Eddie Howe and Newcastle United, obviously. Champions League, AC Milan on Tuesday night. Eddie Howe touched on that, said it was a great point, even upon reflection, having a couple of days to sort of process it. And he's also, you're on a hill, aren't you?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm trying to duck down here so look even.
I'll come up. And said, even though it has been a busy week, his team haven't trained a lot and probably won't train properly until after the Sheffield United game. So, yeah, Jordan, what did you make of the press conference? It wasn't the most eventful press conference, given we spoke to Eddie Howe sort of 3 times in the past week already. But what did you make of it?
Yeah, there wasn't too much to take from it, shall I say. Eddie Howe was quite reserved and coy with the media, so nothing out of the ordinary. But I think the key thing to take from it is probably injury news.
As always.
Yeah, as always. Yeah, Joe Willock and Joe Linton, injury updates on them. More positive on Joe Linton, initially ruled out for a few weeks, but looks like he could be back before international break, while that's maybe PSG in the Champions League or the West Ham game after. Looks like he'll be back around then. Joe Willock ruled out for 6 weeks after that Brighton game, probably facing, by looks at, another month on the sideline, so nothing's changed there. One of the questions I asked about Martin Dubravka, he's obviously absent in midweek. Very blunt answer from Eddie, just said he was feeling unwell, so we'll see if he's back in the squad on Sunday. And then also questions around Tonali as well. Obviously a lot of media coverage around his return to AC Milan and his start to life at Newcastle United. Ultimately Eddie Howe has backed the player to come good. I know he's had a bit of criticism probably from some sections of the media, to be honest, as to how he has settled Tyneside, but Eddie Howe fully in support of the Italian, and I say I'd imagine we'll probably retain his place on Sunday. But apart from that, Dom, very quiet press conference. Looking at the schedule, busy schedule for Newcastle United. You touched upon it there about Newcastle not really training in the build up to Sheffield United.
Yeah. It's probably nothing new for Eddie Howe, being sort of brought up in the Football League, if you like, playing sort of 3 games a week for extended periods. But yeah, it's Brentford, AC Milan, obviously the travelling you have to deal with in that regard, and then an away trip to Sheffield, and then Man City in the Carabao Cup a few days later. So yeah, busy time for Newcastle United, and it won't stop. It's just the reality of Newcastle's situation, being a Champions League club this season. And just on the Tonali stuff, I asked a question about that, injury related as well, where injuries to key midfielders, Joe Linton, Joe Willock, Sean Longstaff, even going back to pre-season. I said whether that had maybe prevented Eddie Howe from easing Sandro Tonali into the team as much as he would have maybe liked, as we've seen with, for example, Bruno previously, where he had to wait and then really benefited from that. But Eddie Howe sort of played that down. Sandro Tonali still did have a solid month of pre-season and sort of burst onto the scene on that Villa game. And I think since then, it's sort of, as the team has struggled for a bit of form, Sandro Tonali's form has sort of reflected that as well. And then, yeah, I asked a slightly cheeky question to Eddie Howe as well last week about... Well, 10 o'clock, it was the embargo time. The club announced that Callum Wilson had signed a new deal, and I just said any other new deals in the pipeline after announcing Callum Wilson straight after the press conference last week. And he just said no, not that he knows of. So past 10 o'clock as we're filming now, and no new deals announced. We understand maybe like to Joe Linton in talks for a new deal, Bruno obviously as well. So there's potential further news to come from that in the coming weeks or months, but as far as Eddie Howe's concerned, no update as such. So yeah, Jordan, now we're looking ahead, Sheffield United this weekend, and big game, and Newcastle looking to make it back-to-back wins and hopefully 3 clean sheets in a row.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie Howe did talk about the importance of following up to really positive results with a win on Sunday. I think if you look at the start of the season, that Brentford game, look, it has been disappointing start. That Brentford game has made it a little bit more positive. Obviously the AC Milan result, getting a draw at the San Siro, again another great result. But if Newcastle go and lose, a struggling team and Sheffield United, a team that is heavily tipped to be in the relegation battle this season, I think there'll be a big disappointment around the fan base, and if they do lose that game. So it's really important that they do follow it up with 3 points. They've already lost 3 games this season. If they want to be competing up the higher end of the Premier League again, challenging that top 4, top 6, they need to go to teams like Sheffield United and win. So I do think it's very important. Again, it comes before a very difficult cup tie against Manchester City. Obviously Newcastle United got the Carabao Cup final last year, but although that is important as well, I do think this Premier League game does take a little bit of an importance because it is the next game. So yeah, I think they've got to get 3 points. I think anything other than that, I think will be a real disappointment.
Yeah, I agree, and it has been a busy time for Newcastle, but they have to learn to deal with it. And whether they've got the squad to deal with it, we'll sort of find out. Eddie Howe was also asked. I'll wrap it up. I
think I've got one more point actually.
Oh,
in terms of, because I've certainly had a lot of fans tweeting me about, why aren't you asking about Tino Livramento and Lewis Hall?
That was the point I was going to make. So
all right, okay, well carry on.
No, that's fine. But yeah, Eddie Howe was asked about Tino Livramento and Lewis Hall. Spent £60 million there or thereabouts if you include the obligation to buy for Lewis Hall, and neither have really. Lewis Hall's still yet to make his debut. Tino Livramento has probably had about 10 minutes total coming off the bench since he signed, and Eddie Howe was just asked about that, and he said they will get the opportunities. When that will happen, he can't say at this moment in time. But looking ahead to Sheffield United, would be surprised to see either of them certainly start, but the Man City game is a potential opportunity for that.
Yeah, I suspect probably both of them will start. I know Eddie Howe likes a bit of continuity. His backline doesn't like to make too many changes, but you've got 2 players there. Ultimately, if you want to look at transfer fees worth £70 million, you're going to have to play them sooner rather than later. And I do think that Manchester City game is a real opportunity to put them in. Again, there is criticism around Dan Burns' position at left back, so I think fans are really keen to see Lewis Hall at least get a run out, and we'll ultimately hope he will start games regularly in the next few months. So I think, as you mentioned earlier, I don't know about easing players in with like Sandro Tonali, etc. He hasn't been eased in. Eddie Howe would have liked to ultimately, but I think it's important that Lewis Hall does get game time soon and establish himself as that number 1 left back, because you don't pay that much on a left back if you aren't going to play him. So Manchester City is a great opportunity. But as I say before that, obviously we've got Sheffield United away. We'll be there. Liam will also be there as well. So please, check us out on Sunday for our reaction to the game, and to Catalyst video as well. Please just like, share and subscribe.